Today we'll be covering rate requests, rate collaboration, and timekeeper plus rates, including rate sharing. Here's a short agenda of what we'll be covering. All right, let's get started with our overview. Timekeeper rates are initiated in Collaborati and they're sent to Team Connect and LogTrack clients. In later versions of CSM, Team Connect clients can make rate submission for timekeepers required. There are multiple ways to submit timekeepers and rates. It may be good to review these questions before determining the best way to submit timekeepers and/or rates. Is the timekeeper authorized? Does the client use rate collaboration? Does the client require rates for timekeeper submission? Is the timekeeper new or existing? Are there many timekeepers, such as 10 or more, that need to be submitted to a client? Consider also the office structure used by the client. Does the timekeeper only need to be assigned to one office or multiple offices? Does the timekeeper need to submit rates for one office or multiple offices? Depending upon the answers to these questions, these are some options. Use timekeepers with rates. Use the timekeepers page, either manual or upload. Use the client's timekeepers page to assign the timekeeper and add rates. Use the timekeepers profile page. Click the Add Timekeepers Rates button, or use the rate requests page. We'll be reviewing each of these options shortly. Now here's a flowchart for 1 to 10 timekeepers. On the left, you'll see the new timekeeper and options if the client uses rate collaboration or not, and suggestions to use the timekeepers with rates or the add timekeeper option. On the right, you'll see existing timekeepers which are not authorized, and then options whether or not the client uses rate collaboration or not, with options to click on the timekeeper, choose the client, and click Add Timekeeper Rates, although that's only one option, and the other option being click on timekeeper and choose the client. We'll be reviewing some options shortly. For more than 10 timekeepers, you have additional considerations. On the left side, you'll see the new timekeepers with options whether or not the client uses rate collaboration or not. Here we can upload using timekeepers with rates or upload using timekeepers only. On the right, you'll see existing timekeepers which are not authorized, and you'll see client may or may not use rate collaboration, with options including click on the client's name, then the timekeepers, then choose the timekeeper and click Add Rates, or you might just click on the timekeeper and choose the client if they don't use the rate collaboration. In particular, if the client requires rates for timekeeper submission, it's a good idea to use the timekeeper with rates option. Once the timekeepers are authorized by the client, then it's possible just to use the rate collaboration feature that will allow you to create rate requests. On the left side, we see many existing timekeepers on the left side. Here we would use upload timekeeper rate request, and on the right side, here we have 10 or more timekeepers. 1 to 10 timekeepers. And here we would use Create Timekeeper Rate Request. Rates are divided into two different categories: timekeeper level and the office default rates. Within the timekeeper level, there are default rates and two other options: invoice task rates and matter level rates. This all might seem confusing, and we'll be reviewing the different options soon. Note also that rate submission for Team Connect clients is slightly different than LawTrack clients. Approved rates can be viewed in Collaborati if the client uses rate sharing. Rates are viewable by client or by timekeeper. Note that the rates for Team Connect and LawTrack clients appear differently on the rate sharing page. Now let's review the timekeeper plus rates in depth. New timekeepers can be submitted with rates using the Timekeeper plus Rates feature if the client allows for rate collaboration. There are manual or upload options. Choose Timekeeper with Rates from the Timekeepers in the top menu bar. Then click Add Timekeeper with Rates on the link there. You'll be required to enter an email address and an office. Here we have Amanda, and we've chosen Blue Law Firm, Blue City. Then click Next. Here you'll enter the required fields, which are in bold. Your client may require additional fields. So we've entered Amanda and Wilson, display code, timekeeper ID, classification, and we've chosen the client here. At the bottom, click Add Timekeeper Rates. On this page, you'll enter the type of rate and the rate, and then also the start and end dates for the rate. Here we've entered the office, which is Blue Law Firm. The client is Gray Client. We have a timekeeper rate. It's $275. Start date is January 1st, 2025. We'll click Add Item. Add any other rate items if needed, then click Next. On the final page, review the timekeeper and rate information, then click Submit. Here's the completed timekeeper with rate. Existing timekeepers can be submitted with rates using the Add Timekeeper Rates. Here we are on the client's page. Click client's name, Gray Client. In the left navigational bar, choose the timekeeper's icon. Choose the timekeeper that needs to be assigned. Here we have Sarah Garza. And then choose to assign for selected office or for all offices. This time, the timekeeper will be assigned to the client for the selected office. Since this client requires rate with timekeeper submission, click the Add Rates button. Enter the rate for the timekeeper and the start and end date if needed. Here we've entered Sarah Garza. The timekeeper type is timekeeper rate, and our rate is $285. The start date we've entered is January 1st, 25, and we've entered no end date, so it will go on indefinitely. And then we click Add Item. If any other rate items needed to be added for Sarah, maybe she had a matter level rate, then we could also add that here. When we're done, we can click Next, review the timekeeper and rate information, and click Submit. The message at the top confirms that the timekeeper has been assigned to the client. Now it's showing pending client authorization. Additionally, there's an option to upload a list of timekeepers and rates. There is a separate sample file for the timekeeper and the rate. This article, labeled Timekeepers Data Update Sample Files, has a list of the different types of files used. There are rate files, those are listed at the top, rate proposal sample 2 and rate proposal sample 3, and timekeeper files, which are below. That's the timekeeper 5, timekeeper 6 at this time. Now we'll review rate collaboration. This gives us the ability to submit rate requests through Collaborati. Vendors can propose rates at the timekeeper level and office level. Again, we've already reviewed this. The timekeeper level has different options, the invoice task rates and matter level rates. Otherwise, the rate will be a default timekeeper rate. Note here that the matter level rate should be considered a premium rate, which would be above the normal default rate. Here we will choose Timekeepers in the top menu bar and select Rate Requests. Choose Create Timekeeper Rate Requests. Fill out the required fields. That's the office, blue law firm, and client, gray client. The other fields are optional. Then click Next. For each timekeeper, fill out the required fields. Here we are choosing the type timekeeper level. So you can see Betty as the type timekeeper rate. Her rate is 120 and the start date is January 1st, 25. She does not have an end date, so that start date will go on indefinitely until another rate is submitted. Then we'll click the Add Item button. When all the timekeeper rate items have been added, click the Next button. Here in the bottom, you can see that Betty has a timekeeper rate and Mateo has a timekeeper rate, and it's at the matter level. On the review page, we can click the Submit button. In this timekeeper rate request, we have chosen the invoice task rate. So here you can see that Steve Walker has the type invoice task rate, and we have entered the task code, P100. Some clients use custom task codes like rack or negotiated. It looks like the rate item here is 300 with a start date of 1/1/25 and no end date. In the table below, you can see that the rate item has been added. When all rate items have been added, click Next. And you can submit on the review page. Here we are showing a office level rate. This will be a rate item for a particular timekeeper classification. For each classification, fill out the required fields. Here we have the classification partner with a rate of 450 and a start date of January 1st, 25. And we're clicking the Add Item button. Once the office rates have been entered, you can click the Next button. And as a note, you can see on the table here at the bottom that the office rate is showing. But note also here that the classification does not actually display in the table at the bottom of the page. It's only when it's being entered in the top that you can see that. All right. Here we have a rate request and what it looks like in Team Connect. So here you can see the header information at the top and then the rate items at the bottom. There's 3 rate items for 3 different timekeepers. If I want to reject rate items, you'll update the line items to no in the first column. So here you can see that George and Bill both have checks and Fred does not. So Fred is being updated to no. And there's also a note on the right, we don't accept C311 rates. Comments can also be added at the line item level or at the rate request level. So on the previous page, we saw the comment at the rate item level, and here we can see a comment at the rate request level, which says, please resubmit as timekeeper rate. Here we can approve the rate request. Additionally, there's an option to reject the rate request in Team Connect. And then the rate items will show as approved in Collaborati. Rate items that are approved will show at both levels, the rate request level and the line item level. So here we have some red boxes on our rate request. In the top, you can see that the rate request status is approved at the rate request level. And additionally, at the table in the bottom, you can see that the line item was also has the approved label. So this item was approved. Here's a rate request that is approved with an adjustment. The icon next to the word approved indicates that additional information should be reviewed. Click on the rate request name for more information. Here you can see that the rate item actually is different. The proposed rate was $350, but the client rate, which means the client reviewed and approved that rate, is $320. So this is the rate that the client approved, not the $350. And on the right, you can see the negotiated rate is the comment left there. This rate item has been adjusted. And the status of the rate request is approved in the top. Even though the rate request is approved, there's additional information that should be reviewed, the rate request record. This one has a rejected item, and you can see that the icon is slightly different than the adjusted item that we just reviewed. Click on the rate request to get more information. Additionally, on the left side of this page, this is the rate request page, you'll see the client updated field indicates that a rate request that has not been reviewed yet. So there's a little clock icon there. So here we can see the rate that has a rejected item and an approved item. At the bottom of the page, you'll see the approved item it has a green box and the rejected item has a red box. There is also a comment on the right side of the rejected item that says, please resubmit. And the status of our rate request here is approved. Now, if the status of the rate request is rejected, that means that everything in the whole rate request is rejected. And even though it says approved in line 2, that would not be the case. It would not actually be approved. But here we do have one approved item and one rejected item. Now we'll briefly review the process to upload a rate request. From the Timekeepers rate request page, click Upload Timekeeper Rate Request. There's a lot of text at the top of this page. You'll see that the text actually shows the client settings. Here it says that start date is required. You'll enter the required fields. Here we have the office, blue law firm, and client is gray client. At the bottom of the page, you can see where you can choose the file to upload, then click the next button, which is not shown here. Our file here has 2 rate items. The rate items show on the preview page. Click Done to save the rate request. On the rate request page, you can click the Submit button. Now we'll look at the Resubmit feature. If the initial rate request has the status of rejected, a button appears next to the rate request. The Resubmit button allows users to correct their rate request and resubmit it to their client. Here we've clicked on the Resubmit button. Note that the name of the rate request is automatically updated to include Resub 1. You can see the request name and the requested by, the office and client are both grayed out. You may need to enter the reason for resubmission, such as correction applied. Click Next. We've already clicked the pencil icon to edit the line item entry. That will allow you to make corrections. The information appears at the top of the page. Make corrections. Here we have Jake with a timekeeper rate, and the rate is 500. Initially, it looks like it was 900. We're going to correct it to 500 and click OK. And then we'll review the items and click Next. Once the rate items have been reviewed, click the Submit button. All right, now we'll move on to rate sharing. This is in particular for Team Connect clients. This feature allows you to share rates with vendors through Collaborati. The rates are shared from Team Connect into Collaborati. They can be shared at the timekeeper and office level rates, and they are enabled separately from rate collaboration. Some clients only use rate collaboration and they don't use rate sharing, so those users won't be able to see the rates for those clients in Collaborati. In order to see the rates for individual timekeepers, you'll click on Timekeepers, select the correct office, click on the timekeeper's name, and then click on the rates icon. It's the 3rd icon from the top in the left navigational menu. Here we'll follow those steps. Timekeeper's office, timekeeper name, and then clicking on the icon in the left navigational pane, we can get to the rate for Ryan, which is 120, starting on December 1st, 2024. If we want to look at rate sharing on the client's page, there's some slightly different instructions, click on the clients, select the correct office, click on the client's name, then click on the icon. Here we've clicked on the clients. We have blue law firm. We're going to click on gray client, and then here we will click on the icon. And we see the rates here at the bottom. It looks like Ryan, Betty Klein has 2 timekeeper rates here. $100 starting December 9th and $100 before then too. All right, now let's move on to rate collaboration and rate sharing for LawTrack clients. For LawTrack clients, rates are submitted at the timekeeper level, and that's considered the timekeeper's default rate. Start and end dates must be entered to match the client's fiscal year. LawTrack does allow for matter level rates, and rate sharing displays the rates with the invoice task codes, even though initially they were not submitted using the rate request with invoice task codes. LawTrack vendors or vendors for LawTrack clients also must submit expense level rates. LawTrack allows for matter level rates, and a matter level rate should be considered a premium rate. Here's an example of a rate request for a LawTrack vendor. We have Julia Adams with a timekeeper rate, $200. We have our start and end date clearly specified. Now we'll click Add Item. Now you can see it in the table at the bottom. And here we can click Submit. Our client is LawTrack 4.3.1, and we have the office Princess Leia firm. All right, let's look into rate sharing. It will display the invoice task codes. All right, here we can see an example of how the rates display. We see the invoice task rates for Dennis. We can see A103, A100, A101, A102. This is appearing this way because I didn't sort by the task codes. But yes, all the task codes that are available for this client will show up for Dennis. And you can see that the rate for each of those task codes is the same, and we have the same start and end dates. And here's some matter level rates. So Ruhi on the left is the timekeeper. We see again the rate type is invoice task rate. We have our task codes E126, B400, B410. All of the rates are the same. We see our matter name, which is Ruhin Test Matter. And we also see start and end dates clearly specified for each of the rates. And you'll notice that each of the rates is the same. Start dates are all the same. All right. So it's sometimes helpful to search for rates by either the timekeeper's name or by the start date or year. So here we've searched for 2017 by searching for /17. This will show us rates for 2017, either with the start date or end date of that. Of course, the LawTrack clients is going to match the fiscal year, so it's probably going to be the same year, but not always. It may also be helpful to search for a common task code. So here you can see we search for B100. We can see Dennis's rate Scott's rate, Dan's rate, Sean and David and April's rate. So we can see the different rates for each of the years. Here it looks like we only have 2018 rates in this particular case, but that will gives you a good idea of how to help our vendors to search for the rates that they need to for LawTrack clients. Rate sharing notes. So to view rates for an individual timekeeper, of course, you'll click on the timekeeper's name, select the office, click on the name, and then choose the correct icon in the left navigational bar. Here we're looking at Terry's rates. You can see A100 through A108 with the rate and the start dates there. The expense timekeeper. So LawTrack is not able to accept expense line items without a timekeeper. The expense timekeeper is authorized by the LawTrack client. Expense timekeepers must have approved rates, usually with a high rate, for example, $1,000 per hour. Note that the expense codes do not display for this special timekeeper, but are authorized in LawTrack. Here we see an expense timekeeper. We see the invoice task rates A100 through A108 or 107. And we see our rate is $5,000 and our start and end date is clearly specified. All right, just a few client-specific guidelines and notes here before we end. So some clients have very specific requirements for their rate requests. Goldman Sachs and Prudential, they use invoice task rates with special task codes. Here's an example. We have Ryan that has 3 different rates. He's got a USD default in the task code, a USD negotiated in the task code, and a USD rack. All of those are specified as the type invoice task rate. I see the currency here is defaulting to US dollars, but does not necessarily mean that that is what the task code is going to be. The task code will show the currency for that timekeeper rate. And we see the default is 100, negotiated 125, and the rack is 125. That looks like maybe it's not exactly correct, but it's just an example. Prudential also uses special task codes. The rate request category should be invoice task rate rather than timekeeper rate. The DISC task code must be used for the Prudential negotiated rate and the RACK task code used for the normal or rack rate. In the timekeeper information, the first year and current category must be populated. It's really helpful to refer vendors to check their clients' billing guidelines for special requirements. Usually these clients that use the invoice task codes will provide special instructions. Some clients can be configured by the client and enforced in Collaborati, such as the start and end date requirements. Diversity requirements may be required, rates required for timekeeper submission. Rate sharing can be enabled, but the admin may not be able to see the rates. This could be a problem that needs to be investigated further. Usually rate sharing issues must be investigated by Team Connect support because it means that Team Connect is not sharing the rates correctly. Again, these are problems that Collaborati support may encounter. All right, now we'll move on to just a few troubleshooting before we end. So sometimes when we have rate request errors, we'll see an error message that says line item number conflicts with existing rate. Now this error can be caused by 2 different problems. Maybe the rate item or the rate request for that line was approved or it's on a pending client approval rate request and the dates overlap with a new rate request. In this case, the old rate request should be deleted, and then they will be able to create a new rate request. This problem or this error could also be caused when two lines with the same timekeeper with overlapping information both occur in the same file. We have more information in this article in our Client Success Center. Another rate request error you might see is the request must have at least one valid line item. In this case, we've seen that the file doesn't have any data, only two header lines. Might be helpful to open the file in Excel or maybe in Notepad. And here's another error that you might see. Rate is missing. Usually when a rate request is created manually, then the rate has to be entered in the rate field. And if there is a character instead of a number, then this error may appear. Sometimes this is caused because of the locale issue. The solution here would be to change the locale to English, United States, and then log out and log in to apply the new setting. And it may be necessary to clear the browser history just to make sure, but the locale issue can sometimes falsely cause this error message, rate is missing. For more information, look up the locale issue in the Client Success Center. And here's another error that can happen sometimes. The vendor will say, oh, the rate request appeared, but I created it. So this could happen if the search filter was used and the admin created a new rate request which doesn't match the search filters. As we all know, the rate request page search filters use sticky search filters, so the solution here would be to click the clear button on the rate request page. This concludes the training session.